Welcome everyone to Higher Moment Mastermind. I am Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today. Here to answer your job search questions. Yes, yes, yes. So this is, for those who are new, this is an open Q&A. Whatever job search question is on your heart and mind, I'm happy to help you answer it from any topic whatsoever, from dealing with recruiters to resumes, interviews, the job search strategy, networking, any or all of the above. We are an intimate little group and we are here to support you and to support each other, right? So if you've got ideas for each other, please feel free to chime in, right? It's not just about me, it's about all of us, right? The collective brain trust here to support your search. So who would like to kick us off with an opening question? I know you're not shy. So,
I'll go first.
okay.
I'm a government contractor in the DC area, and pretty easy to find federal contractor companies. But my family is in the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm looking to go back there in the private industry as well. Do you have any recommendations on how to find the target companies in an area you're not familiar with?
That's a great question. Obviously, I mean, it's a big there's a big it depends, right? To that, obviously. I mean, look, there's different ways to go about this. First of all, the very first thing I would do, honestly, is I would start asking your colleagues here who they know over there. And the reason why is, and I mean specifically within your industry, because it's not just about them knowing companies, but them knowing people in those companies. Because at the end of the day, even if you hear of a company, it's a lot better if you have an internal champion, somebody who can recommend you. So that's the first thing I would do, is ask folks in your industry here who they know there, and put it out on social networks, right? Ask on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and obviously personal connections. The second thing is, depending on the industry, right? So in your case, it's GovCon. I mean, I know this sounds very simplistic in kindergarten for me to say, but literally a www dot, right? So just do a search and say, government contracting firms in Dallas, Fort Worth, like literally that simple. And the reason is that oftentimes what'll happen is it'll pull up lists. It could be from some local, business journal or a chamber of commerce, or, oftentimes like, the top 100 or the top 20 such and such, commercial real estate firms or associations or government contractors or architectural engineering firms or whatever. Oftentimes, literally those lists will come up because somebody else has aggregated them. So that's absolutely I would go for. I have this, I could be wrong, but I thought that AECOM is in Dallas. I could be wrong, but I know I'm pretty sure they have a Texas location, and of course they're massive. So you know who I'm talking about, AECOM? Yeah, I would, I'd look them up for sure. The other thing too is, these days, putting aside geography, Jerry, these days there are so many companies that are offering fully remote jobs. You may not have to, it may not matter, right, where the company is located. So you could potentially move there. I mean, obviously do your search wherever you want to, but you could potentially move there and still have a job wherever. Could be in any state, right? So this post-pandemic world that we're in is very different than pre-pandemic. I mean, I'm telling you, there's just huge percentages of companies that have literally just gone fully remote, not just remote during the pandemic, but like permanently remote. So you should have a plethora of opportunities that you would not have had earlier that would have been geographically bound. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A couple of suggestions. One is, there's a giant government contracting group on LinkedIn, has several thousand members, and it's very active. So that's sorting through the members of that group could be a way to find some contacts.
Okay, thank you.
Government contractors, I think it's called. And the other is to do a simple Google search using, which will invoke the Google job aggregator. And you would say you're looking for, I don't know, what 2 words would describe what you're looking for, kind of job you're looking for.
Is it project manager, Jerry?
Yes.
All right, so maybe IT project manager, whatever, near, and then put in a zip code, and you'll get back some results, and you can expand the geographic range, you'll see a list of counties and cities that it covers. So you might break the geography down a little bit. And you can get daily notifications back on that. I have one in for marketing jobs, and I got 10 this morning.
Wow.
In my neighborhood. I mean, I haven't done the full tilt of building that out, but that might be one way. I would think LinkedIn, in terms of identifying contacts, LinkedIn would be a good
Well,
resource.
so that's the other thing. Thank you for that, Susan. LinkedIn is a huge place to do that. And that's something, in fact, I have a LinkedIn training. I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys where you can find that on my website. Susan, thank you for bringing that up. That's just really, really important. So
I started following you years ago because of your LinkedIn training.
oh, really?
Ah,
Okay. All right.
yeah, you're famous.
Well, I'm glad you found some value. So anyway, on this page of my website, I'm gonna go ahead and show you this. Actually, sorry, let me just put this in the chat first. Okay. Oh, and Gina, you asked where this recording will be shared or posted. While I'm on my page, let me just show you. If you go to purposefulhire.com, right? This is my main site. Right here, Hire Moment Mastermind. Just click there. And you'll see, actually, I'm a little bit lax in the last few weeks of posting, but so September 23rd was the last one. But anyway, I typically I will post, right? These are all of our recordings all the way since we started since in August of 2020. So you can just click on any one if you want to just hear any, random HMM that we've done. So you can find that here. But back to the videos on the page that I just posted down here. All these are great, but they're all hyperlinked. These are job search presentations I've done over the years to job seeker groups. One of them is called Using LinkedIn Like a Pro. It's 2 hours long, and it goes over both how to build a brand on LinkedIn, right? A profile and so forth, and then also how to use LinkedIn for search features to find other people. So basically how to be found and how to find others. And then this posting right here, or presentation, is accessing the hidden job market, because 80% at least of all jobs are hidden from the market, are not on the job boards, Indeed, LinkedIn's job board, or anything. They're just Career Builder. They're just not there because people are searching privately. And this is a whole presentation on networking, right? On how to best leverage your network. And there's other ones as well. So feel free to avail yourself of that. But when it comes to, Jerry, when it comes to using LinkedIn, what I would absolutely do is use the search bar. So just open LinkedIn. There's a search bar in the upper left-hand corner, and you can start playing around with keywords. So you can put in project manager, government contracting, that kind of thing, and start playing around. And when you do a search, just hit enter. When the search comes up, in fact, I'll do it real quickly so you can see an example. You can do some filtering, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to find people who do what you do. Okay, because those are the people who might be hearing about opportunities that are not right for them but could be right for you. So for example, if you just put up here again, project manager, government contracts, and then
GovCon is a big keyword.
absolutely, yep. So I just hit the people button. So for example, oh, here you go, San Antonio. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go to locations, and I'm going to do Dallas. Okay, so here you go. Here are a whole bunch of people, right? So let's just click on one random person. So he has a pretty big background. Obviously, this is not a government contractor. Actually, Harris is a, I think an architectural engineering firm, but works with government, right? So GovCon could be in just about any industry.
So he's up here, kind of.
So the point though is that if you go through, do a search like this and go through people's profiles, you get two things. Number one, you get some potential connections, people you can literally reach out to and say, hey, can I network with you? I'm moving to the area. And by the way, when you say that you're relocating to an area, people tend to be a little more helpful. They're like, oh, okay, happy to help. Okay, welcome, right? And number two, when you open up their profile, you can start to see where they work. And that can literally be your marketing list. Okay, so you remember you asked, like, how do I find companies? Well, that's one of the ways you find companies is finding people's profiles, opening up their profile and seeing where they work, and that becomes your list. So for example, here, I don't know whether this, Demantic, transportation logistics, okay, fine. Maybe they're a GovConner. I don't know. That makes sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
People from your school work there.
Yeah.
So, or Jerry, even what do you think about getting the list of registered government contractors? That's public information. I mean, that's kind of overwhelming, but you think that would, I don't know all the details of how you get your hands on it, but you could get the SBA would be a route, I would think, to find out. You may know.
Yeah, I assume that the state and or the city would have some kind of list like that.
The feds do.
But if I pick a
Yeah.
company like L3, for instance, then it becomes okay, do they have an office in the Dallas-Fort Worth
And then
area?
you just have to start
Oh,
searching.
good point. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how useful the specific data would be, but there's that. If you're looking for a smaller firm.
Okay.
But sounds like you're looking for a larger firm.
Well, no, just using that as an example, the smaller firms, I wouldn't even know how to look at unless it was organized by a geographic area.
Well, it is. There is. I can find out because I have a client who actually I used it a long time ago to build a government contracting training program, and that's the only reason it succeeded is we had that list. And I just can't remember. I think there's been some reorgs. I'm not sure where you get it now.
I had bought a list of SICs in the DFW area.
This is public info. It's not,
I like that a lot better.
Yeah, the price is right. I'll find out for you.
Thank you.
All right, good. All right, who else has a question? Or even if it's not a specific question, just wants to share maybe a little bit about, your search right now and in some way we can, support you through it.
Yeah, hi, Shira.
Yes.
I was sorry you were not here last week because I did want to share that a connection that you gave me and I connected up. We finally got that
With Stephanie?
opportunity. Yes.
Good.
And it did the very next or the day before that Saturday, I decided to do a 5K with AMPS, the Association of Meeting Professionals.
Yeah.
And she was, when we were talking, she was supposed to be at that
Really?
5K,
Wow.
but she canceled out at the last minute, which was kind of funny that we didn't meet there. But anyway, so I asked her for 2 connections, and one of the people that was at the 5K that I had just met.
Wow.
So
There you go. That's great.
it was great fun to go through these processes, and this connection actually decided that I needed a membership into AMP. So she went and found a sponsor for me to get into AMP so that I can get a job and I can get free 5Ks. So I don't have to go paying for them. But it was great fun.
Nice.
But that has been a good part of it. And then one other thing is that I have an interview at 11 o'clock today with Tina Waymeyer.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's a connection of
Yes,
yours. And I
yeah.
don't know whether you know her very well or not. I do think it's kind of funny, but I'm a little concerned about this job is that I think she had this advertisement out for 5 minutes. I applied for it. She contacted me within 15 minutes of my submitting my resume.
Yeah.
And then she asked me when I was available to talk, and she gave me, I told her 11 o'clock on Friday morning was the very first time. And she's like saying, okay, we need to talk now. So to me, I'm already getting the impression that she's already desperate just to find somebody. And I'm just wondering, does that happen?
It is happening now. So let me, so I'm gonna bounce off of what you're saying, Sally, to give a
Okay.
larger concept of what's going on in the market.
Yes.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
Employers are pulling their hair out of their head to find good candidates. Let me
Okay.
put a period at the end of that sentence. I mean, I really, really need you guys to get this. All sectors, I don't know of a sector that isn't saying this.
Okay.
They are finding it extremely difficult to find quality talent for their organizations, associations included,
Mhm. Okay.
across the board,
Yeah.
at all levels, just about. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, right? From the Great Resignation, people leaving the workforce, all kinds of things, on top of which employers are still pretty narrowly focused in what they want, the unicorn candidate, purple squirrel, as we
Okay.
say in recruiting.
Yeah.
And I say that because, you have this sort of right? Like, isn't there, the supply isn't really there, but their
Uh-huh.
demand is high in terms of what they're looking for, and people are missing each other.
Yeah.
So it's not
Okay.
that there aren't talented people, it's that the talented people they're looking for, right, are just not quite there. And so you've got sometimes now employers are relaxing their requirements a little bit because they
Okay.
can't get everything that they want. And so there is a level of desperation from some of these employers. Absolutely. That doesn't surprise me, actually, at all.
Okay.
Yeah. That
I will tell you, it's the AMC Institute.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah. So she and
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever met, but we have a connection there.
Okay.
Do you know what the
Okay.
AMC Institute is?
Kind of, I get
the
the
basic-
impression from what I'm studying about it is that it's the association management companies, and it makes me nervous. That part makes me nervous too, because I know that AMCs are very difficult to work with, work in. I have had a lot of friends that
They are
work in.
they can be challenging to work in.
Yes.
How they show up as members, I don't know. That's different.
Okay.
Because it's the
Mhm.
president of the AMC that's going to be the member, presumably.
Yeah.
I don't know how they are. You're
Okay.
absolutely right. AMCs can be challenging.
Yeah.
So if you do get if you meet with her, I would ask her about the member
Okay.
engagement and what they're like to work
Yeah.
with as members.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What is the name of the company again?
It's an
It's-
association.
It's
Of
called,
management companies? Or
yeah, it's called
consultants?
the AMC Institute. So it's like a school or a college for association management company
Okay.
managers and
Actually,
directors.
to clarify just a little bit.
Okay.
So it's not really, it's called institute, but it doesn't mean institute like
Yeah.
education. It's
Okay.
association. It's like a regular
Okay.
association. It's a trade
Mhm.
association.
Yeah.
Their
Okay.
member
Yes.
companies are AMCs, and AMC is an association
Gotcha.
management company that runs small associations.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome. All right. Who else has? Gina, would you like to, I know you're new with us today. Did you have a question for us? I know you just went off camera, so maybe you stepped away. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I stepped away. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure. Hey, Jeffrey, good to see you.
Hey, good morning, Shira, and good
Morning.
morning, folks. It's always good to be with great people, and it's a wonderful day.
Yeah, good to see you. Do you have a job search question for us?
Yes, this week I applied for an executive director position with the College Park City University Partnership. To the point, and it's a nonprofit organization focusing in on community development with emphasis on sustainability and equity. Having said that, I applied by way of LinkedIn. I sent a message to the HR rep as listed in the job posting. And at this point, the next step is to introduce myself. I think to the hiring managers, if you will, which would be the chairman of the board and select board members, and perhaps the current executive director. So, what say you, Shira and group?
So make sure I'm clear about this. So you have not, the job has been posted. You've applied to the role. So you have not yet been invited in for an interview. Is that right?
That is correct.
You're trying to get yourself in there.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's very challenging with an executive director role, right? Because I mean, yes, you absolutely can introduce yourself to the executive director, the outgoing one. Introducing yourself to the board members is a little bit tricky. You can if you have a legitimate connection to them. So if you are second level connections with, let's say, the chair of the board or anybody on the board, and you have, obviously a mutual first level connection, I would leverage that person. But outside of that, it can feel a little bit pressuring to the board if you just go in cold. Okay. I would say specifically for a board of directors, because they don't want to be inundated with candidates coming to them. That's just not, the busy people. The executive director, though, again, you can reach out, but again, I would really recommend that if you if you are second level, have you looked on LinkedIn to see how you're connected to the executive director?
I have not.
Yeah, that's the very first thing that I would do.
Okay.
And if you are second level, then that I would do an intro. But again, look, we always talk about getting an internal champion. So yeah, so anybody who can refer you in would be ideal. On top of which, okay, in addition to getting internally referred, and this is a tip for everybody, very, very important. I cannot emphasize this enough. If I had neon lights and colored markers, I would do a thing around what I'm saying. You absolutely must customize your resume, cover letter too, but mostly your resume for the opportunity. And it's a very nuanced thing. All right. Your resume is broken out into several sections. You have hopefully a headline at the top of your resume, something that what I'll call a career headline, something that speaks to what you're doing, what you want to do. You should have some keywords, preferably in a text box below that. And then you've got your experience. And in your experience, you want to have accomplishment stories, not job duties, accomplishment stories, hopefully that are labeled with key competencies. I'm going to bring this up in a second to give you an example, because I actually am a resume writer, and I'll show you the sample, the template that I happen to use. But before I do that, what's important to understand is that it's a very, very nuanced thing. Let me give you a real example. So some of you know what I do in the world, right? I do lots of things. I am a career coach. I write resumes. I write LinkedIn profiles, that kind of stuff. I'm also a recruiter. So I sit on both sides of the hiring aisle. So I'm going to bring up a quick example from my recruiting world. Right this hot second, this minute, I'm doing a search for Director of Communications and Media Relations for a trade association. It's called the Steel Manufacturers Association. So this is a job that is heavy duty media relations, right? Engaging with the media, pitching the media, that kind of thing. It is not and I don't know, all your backgrounds, if you would understand my nomenclature here, but it is not what's called marketing communications per se. So it's not marketing. It's not marketing to the members. It's not marketing conferences. It's not marketing membership. It's none of that. It's an externally facing role representing the industry to the media, mostly. Okay. It's a very specific kind of job. Well, people in communications oftentimes have a wide range of skills. So I recruited a number of candidates, and some of the resumes that I got in, they're qualified, like they had media relations experience. However, in the resume, understandably, they would also focus on their marketing communications. Like they literally would use that phrase here and there and here and there. Some of them used it in their headlines, some of them used it in their keywords. And I actually had to say to the candidates, once I vetted them, once I made sure that they actually wanted to do media, like the job was right for them, I said, now you need to customize your resume. I need you to shift the language from marketing communications to media relations. Okay. That kind of thing. It's subtle. It's subtle because what I didn't want to have happen is my client get the wrong impression from the resume. Because if they put marketing communications all over the place, the client might have erroneously thought, oh, well, this is a Marcom person, marketing communications, they're not really a media person, but I knew differently because I'd interviewed them. Okay. So my point is that it's very, very important to look at the nuance of the posting, look at the language that they're using, and shift it because you know your profession. Okay, and I'll give you one more example from this very search. This is, again, very, very subtle thing. In the world of communications, there's public relations. There's also something called public affairs. It's different. Now, I'm not talking about government public affairs, but I'm talking about like a trade association. When they use the term public affairs, they mean the intersection of government relations and public relations. They mean somebody who's going to go work with the lobbyists and go communicate the message to the Hill and all of this. That's actually not this job. It's just regular public relations. Another subtlety I had to ask the candidates, I need you to kind of pull back from the public affairs languaging and emphasize the public relations media. Do you get where I'm going with this, guys? Okay. Subtle, subtle, subtle. But again, you know your profession and you know your industry. You've got to really read that job announcement and comb through and look for what are they emphasizing here? What's the goal of this job? What are they focused on? Someone like Sally, right? She's also in the association world, and she's in the education space. Now, education jobs in associations often have a meeting planning component. And Sally has to make a decision. Does she want to go for a job that has sort of both education and meetings, or just education? And if so, what's the subtleties of how are they phrasing things, and how can she, subtly use the terminology? Okay. Is this all making sense? This is very, very important because that's another way, Jeffrey, of how to get eyeballs on your application, is making sure that the keywords pop out, the keywords that are important to them. Even though you have other skills, those are not the skills you want to be emphasizing. You want to focus on what's important to the employer. All right. So I'm just going to really quickly pull up the sample that I've been alluding to. So if you guys give me just 1 second, it's gonna take me just a minute here to find it. Give me a moment. Okay, here we go. So again, this is just a sample. Oops. All right, so this is the resume template that I use for my clients. And you'll see here that it has a headline. Now this, again, this gets customized, right? So in this particular case, it happens to be a Marcom person pulling up, but this could be customized. This could, depending upon what the person is looking for or what the job is, it could say, maybe digital marketing, or it could say healthcare marketing, or what have you. I have a little bit of a descriptor under here, and then the keywords. Notice there's no long paragraph. Recruiters don't read long paragraphs. If you have this whole summary thing, like 25 years of experience, it normally recruiters just skip right over that. They don't have time to read that. They scan, they don't read. And so down here, you'll see that I have these accomplishment stories, right? And every accomplishment story is labeled with a competency. It's very clean and easy. Recruiters love this format because it makes it so that they can just go whoosh, right down the page. They can focus on the competency, because if you don't, so here's the deal. So let's say you don't have any competencies here, and all you have is a bunch of bullets, okay? So imagine a whole resume like this. This is not something that people can scan. They have to physically read it. And like I said, recruiters don't have time for that. So if all you had were bullets, it's like want, like Charlie Brown, right? Want. They can't see it because they're just screening. And it's too much trouble for them to actually pull out the keywords. Whereas if you put the keywords in for them, the keywords that relate to the job, boom, 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 they can just screen down. And then what they're doing is they're figuring out what pile you go into, what I call the A pile, B pile, or C pile. The A pile are the people that they actually want to interview right now. That's the pile you want to be in. And if you make it easy for them by putting in those keywords up front, then they can quickly say, great, she's in the A pile. Then once you're in the A pile, then they can go back and do another scan and go, oh, now let me pull out the extra subtle keywords that might be embedded in certain paragraphs. And then, of course, before an interview, they might, read it a little bit more deeply. But do you understand the power here of having the keyword? Because then it helps them to say yes quickly. Does that make sense? Okay.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely do the customization. And, you know, yes, in your case, you could go to the executive director if they're a second level person, second level contact, and see if you can leverage your first level connection to get noticed. That's how I would do that.
I've submitted what I consider from a rational standpoint, primo applications in recent months for top flight executive level positions with regional and national nonprofits. And I've had 2 interviews based upon networking. Somebody who could, from within, who
Good.
provided the access, if you will, to the hiring manager.
Great.
But for the other opportunities, that I'm eminently qualified for, again, I'm saying this from my own rational perspective. I've not had a bite, and I look at it from the standpoint that they don't know who I am,
That's right.
hole in the head.
Yeah. You're just a piece of paper.
I'm just a piece of paper.
Right.
The top third of my resume. I have the information within the rectangle at the top about my background and putting in the buzzwords and key terms from the job posting, and highlighting with bullet points using a star approach my achievements as it relates to the organization with the key term at the top or relative to what the position calls for. But from my standpoint, again, if I don't have the network in place,
Right.
it's not going to.
It is so true. You're right, because resumes are, you're just a piece of paper, right? This is why networking is so important. I'll give you guys one little story. It was reminded to me, or brought up to me recently. So it actually has to do with this group. So back in the beginning of the pandemic, when we first started this, we had a woman named Kimberly Berry, and she was, a long-time attendee. She was in transition. And in this group, she heard about another networking group, right? So there's another person in this group who belonged to another networking group. It's actually in the association world, and it's called the Association Coffee Chat. Sally, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you should attend it. Anyway, it's every morning at 8:30. Anyway, so she goes to that.
That was one of my questions. I just, it's called Association
Coffee Chat. Give me, if once I finish my story, I'll put the
Sure.
I'll put the link in there. It's just the Zoom link.
Right.
So anyway, so she goes to this other group, and in that group, right, she mentions, she's looking for director of membership job, and somebody on the group said, hey, our association is looking for director of membership. You should apply. And Kimberly said to herself, but I know that group. I applied to that job, Kimberly says, 2 months ago. Hadn't heard a thing. It was the CFO of that organization that was on that call. And the CFO said to Kimberly, well, just go ahead and send me your resume directly. I'll make sure it gets noticed. Not only did she make sure it got noticed, she got the job.
Oh.
After having heard nothing, applying online 2 months prior, somebody in the organization walked it over to HR. She gets hired. Okay. This happens all the time. Okay. That's why networking is so important. And you can go to generic groups like this. Of course, we're all in all kinds of sectors on this call, but I would also highly recommend that you go find networking groups that are in your community, whatever that is, whether it's a current community that you're in that you want to stay in, or aspirational, like a one that you want to shift into. Ask around. There are networking groups all over the country, especially now in Zoom land, right? It used to be that they all met in person, but now everything's online, everything's virtual, very accessible. I would absolutely encourage all of you to ask your colleagues, ask people who are in the community you are in or you want to be in, what networking groups do you belong to? Live ones. I don't mean just like a LinkedIn group. I mean, literally something like this. That is the place where people hear about opportunities all the time. And that's why it was so important for Kimberly to have gone to an association networking group. I mean, it was lovely for her to be with us, but we're all over this, we're cross-sectoral. That one was in her community. And that's why she was able to get a direct lead. Okay. Highly recommend it. In fact, Gina, I understand you're shifting, not to call you out here, but
Yeah, yeah, I am shifting, and thank you for sharing that sample resume. It's it seems like it seems like there are different formats and different preferences, and there's not one way of doing it. So it was helpful to see how you like
this was
to.
another way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all those little things like, do you do full justify? Do you do paragraphs?
Yeah,
Do
sure.
you do bullets? What type of bullets? You know,
Mm,
do you
yeah.
do squiggles? Do you do lines?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've established a career in fundraising, and leading fundraising shops in all different types of nonprofits and different issue areas within nonprofits. And so I'm really looking at using those transferable skills into a new area, be it the public sector, the government sector, I don't know, project management, or in the for-profit sector, being on the opposite side of philanthropy, doing community relations, but also looking at supporting the nonprofit sector through recruiting as well, since I have held so many hats and I've been a fundraiser, which is where a lot of turnover happens. So I've been dabbling into a lot of different possibilities, which in that regard, Shira, makes it a little bit harder to commit to that LinkedIn profile and those descriptors. It also makes it a little bit harder to open to my networks and tell them these different things, because it's just all over
the place. Yeah.
And I have no idea. I may end up back in fundraising.
Right.
So it's like I did this exploration, and I guess the career journey just never stops. But what advice would you have in that regards? And yeah, if you have any thoughts about how the nonprofit search or association search field is going.
Sure. Okay. So obviously there's a lot packed into your question. And what I'm going to try to do is answer it, but also try to be helpful to everybody on the call, right? So I know there are some of you who are trying to make some sort of career pivot. So what I like to do first is share with you what the market looks like. Okay. So let me tell you let's do the reality side of things. Like what are employers looking for? Let's talk from their side first. Then you want to look at your side and how you can marry up to that, right? So that's what I'm going to start with. So I like to say that employers in general are very, very risk averse. Okay. Any of you who've been a hiring manager, I want you to put your hiring manager hat on right now. Anytime you have looked for a direct report, what hat were you using? Risk aversion is a main one. Why? You don't want to risk in the hire. You want someone who's been there, done that, has 5 t-shirts, bag of potato chips, and some side order coleslaw, right? Why? Because you don't have time to train. You want somebody who hopefully understands what they're doing, the industry that you're in, understands your members, your customers, your clients, your what have you, right? To make a smooth landing. Everybody's stressed out. We don't have time for training. We just don't. That's the ideal for the employer. I'm not saying they always get it, but that's typically the lens that they start out with. Usually, every once in a while, you get an employer that's specifically looking for someone who's outside of the sector because they want a fresh perspective. It's rare. It does happen. I have seen it happen. Okay. But just so you understand, generally. Okay. Before you go, Jerry, you weren't one of the people who asked this, but sorry, I'm going to pivot for a second. There were a couple of you in the chat who direct messaged me, who asked me about the resume that I just shared. So I was very happy to share it just quickly online because it is my proprietary business, my proprietary template. I'm not in a position to actually send out the sample to all of you. I hope you understand because it is what I do for a living, right? But I was happy to sort of quickly share it if you wanted to just borrow some ideas from it. But if you did want to send me your resume for a quick review, I can, but please understand, if I ever review a resume very quickly, there's not too much I can say because there's so much more I need to know. I need to know your brand trajectory. I need to know your value proposition. I need to know, where you're looking. And then the resume has to align with all that. So I can't quite do a quick, right? Although I'm happy to try if that's all that you need from me. Of course, if you'd like to engage formally, you're welcome to do that too. So whatever you like, but just wanted to address that for the couple folks who wrote me in the chat. Anyway, so Jerry just wanted to share that before you left. Anyway, So when it comes to, the understanding their perspective, that's the lens you need to always look at. Therefore, when you look at your background, there are two things you got to look at: what I call your lane and what I call your community. First thing, your lane is what you do. Your community is who you do it for. So your lane is your profession. So in your case, it's been sort of some version of fundraising. I know you have search in your background too, right? Sort of this people engagement thing. And you've been cross community. You've had different industry. I call it, what I consider a community is the industry, mission, sector, that kind of thing. Ideally, the employer is looking for you to have experience in both. That's their perfect world. They can't always get it. But at the very least, they prefer somebody who has the lane experience, this actual hard skills. Sometimes they are open to cross community. Preferably, it's somebody who's at least a first cousin to their community. All right. So for example, let's say that the industry is the commercial real estate sector. Well, yeah, they may be open to somebody from mortgage banking, or I don't know, something that's a little architectural engineering, whatever, like something that's at least breathes the same air. Okay. And what's important then is to be as focused as possible. And Gina, you're very correct. When you go to your network, you're right. When you're all over the place, nobody knows what to do. They're like, you got to help them, which means you need to do some soul searching. Now, whether you work with a person like me or a colleague or whatever, I absolutely recommend that you engage with somebody who's objective to you. So if you work with a friend or a colleague, try to make sure it's not a family member, not your best friend, because they're very well-meaning, but not necessarily going to give you the best advice. Try to do somebody who's very, very objective to you and help you focus in. Now, your focus could be a little bit broad. It could be, for example, if it's a sector that you're going into. So for example, right now, a lot of people are like, I want to work for the environmental sector, I want to save the planet. Okay. That's a very broad sector, but at least it's something. At least it's a focus area. So folks who are in that sector, you can tell your colleagues, hey, I'm a climate change person. I really want to go after that sector. That's fine. Then at least they can start to help you network within that sector, and then you can get a little more narrow. So try to be, if you are a sectoral person, try to find a sector. If not, if you're cross-sectoral and you just want to focus on your lane, try to find a lane that is specific. Now, it may not be fundraising anymore, but if it's not fundraising, it needs to be something that's close enough related so that the employer sees the connection. So for example, I would not say that fundraising and project management are in the same vein. They're not. They're very, very far apart. Okay. Employers will not be able to make that link. Search, potentially, because in fundraising, you're making a lot of asks. So it's business development of sorts. In search or in any kind of sales, business development. Okay, maybe, potentially. And of course, and you had shared with me an opportunity, right, online. I won't say it, of course, out loud, but you shared an opportunity, and it was a search firm that deals in the nonprofit sector. Okay, you came from that a long time ago. You got the fund, right? I could see them feeling comfortable with you. You've got to walk a mile in the employer's shoes to say, is this employer going to feel comfortable hiring me? Because they're the other side of the equation. You've got your needs, you've got your career needs, they've got their business needs. And you know this, you've been in search, right? You get the concept. But I absolutely want to emphasize this to you. And so I want to give you an example of how I once helped somebody do this very thing, and hopefully it'll be helpful for all of you. So I was once working with a coaching client, and she came from the government relations lobbying sort of world. Okay. But she decided she wanted to go into operations. Now, how do you turn a lobbyist or lobbying kind of person into an operations person? Well, we did it. How? We went through her accomplishment stories in her GR, government relations world, and we found stories that related to operations skills, budget management, staff development, event planning, anything that's had as technology, whatever, things that had an opsy flavor to it. We found those stories, labeled those stories with the ops kind of label, budget management, blah, blah, blah. Gave her a new headline. I don't know whether we said aspiring operations professional or something like that, but it had operations headline, had all of those keywords. Obviously, we couldn't change where she worked and we couldn't change her titles, but we could emphasize these new accomplishment stories where, yes, it was in a government relations context, but the skill was the ops skill. Put it all together. She went out and networked and landed a role. She ended up landing as the head of a foundation, right? Nothing to do with GR. but she was able to use her operation skills running the foundation. Okay. We created a whole new brand. And Gina, that's what you got to be looking at. So first there's a focusing of who you want to serve, how you want to serve, what's your value proposition, what are your superpowers, figure out your brand, then your resume, then your LinkedIn profile, your about section needs to then speak to this new brand. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. Because again, you got to walk a mile in the employer's shoes first. Who are they going to feel comfortable with? And how can you repurpose your skills in a way that they can hear? Okay. Cool. All right. Other questions?
Can I
I have
piggyback on what you just said?
Oh, I don't know who was first.
Susan gets to go first. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm really intrigued by that. I mean, you could say that brand story that informs your resume. Do you have a resource, a book, a website or anything that might help?
I wish I did. This is all very organic for me. It comes from my work experience.
No, I hear that.
Yeah, yeah. I wish,
Yeah.
I really, honestly, I really wish I did. If anybody on the call has one, that would be great. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who do branding out there.
The
there is-
story aspect of
well,
it.
you know what?
Not just the colors and the.
No. I heard what you're saying. The narrative. Are you talking about specifically for job search or just like branding in general?
Specifically for job search.
For
and
job search. Well,
specifically for retelling the story of your career in a slightly different way that will help you go to a new place.
Yeah. So one person, and she's close to what you're looking for. Her first name is Jen. Let me just see here. What is her last name? Oh wait, I know where to find her. Give me 1 second. 1 sec. Okay, here it is. So her name is Jen Dalton. And she's all about personal branding. This is what she does. In fact, I'm going to, so some of you may know that I have a community service project, another community service project I run called Boomer Works. It helps 50 plus professionals re-career into self-employment. We offer free educational programs every month. Jen was one of our speakers. Okay. So I'm going to put her, hold on. I'm going to put her, this link. Okay. So if you go to this link, which is on our BoomerWorks website, the very first video is her video. Now, she was talking about leveraging your personal brand to grow your business brand, because of course it was a self-employment topic, but you can hear her a little bit. And her information, let me just pull her up here. I'll put her contact information in the chat. Because I think she's prolific in her thought leadership. And here is her LinkedIn profile. And contact info is. Okay. So, and feel free to mention my name when you reach out. But and if she's not exactly who you want, Susan, she's likely to know who is. But she does a lot of personal branding with in particular executives to help them tell. Actually, she does. She helps them tell their career story, their brand career story. So I think she really is, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, a good person for you.
Thank you.
Hopefully I don't know if she's written anything or what have you, but she could be good for you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the fun things that I love to do with my clients is figure out the branding, but I just haven't done any thought leadership around it, so I can't offer it, as something formal.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got it nailed.
Yeah, but she might, or if she doesn't, then she might know who does.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, Dana.
Thank you, Shira. I have a question regarding, I discovered so many things while I was having a conversation with hiring managers and recruiters, because I applied again since last month, and my background is I have been a people manager since 2006. And the last experience I've had with a global market was 2010. After that, I opened certain businesses and partnered with people, but more on having businesses. Now I understand why I've been having challenges getting a coordinator role, because the people that I talk to explained it to me from a hiring manager's point of view, that when they look at my resume, though I have the numbers there, I followed your advice, Vern's advice about putting the numbers there, and the headline as well as the details that a hiring manager or recruiter needs. But I got their point of view that when they're looking at my resume, they would see that I might get bored with a coordinator
That's
role.
right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
but
exactly right. That's
yeah.
exactly.
So I understand that you would have to network, and I'm working with this skill with Vern
Mhm,
because I work better with small groups and one-on-one
mhm.
conversations and gatherings. But I'm not really into big gatherings.
Yeah.
I have been more intentional and happier with that route. So uh, what do you think would be a percentage wherein, because I would have to get my message across that I just relocated here and this is my story, and that does not really get across with just passing it online, right? The
Well, the
resume online.
question too, though, is you have to, I would also go to the root of what you're talking about. Is there, not to go, we don't have a lot of time for the full story, right? But
Oh
is there a
yeah.
reason why you're only looking for a coordinator level?
Yeah, because the last time I worked with the North America market was 2010. And I want to understand the market again. And even though I can work on the mechanisms at the back office and the back end of doing the job, primarily I would really have to understand the market to be able to be excellent at the job. So how do you send that message? And that's the first question. And then second is what would be the best, like just a ballpark figure, that the percentage of the networking effort and the online application?
So I'll answer the second question first. I know this is going to sound very extreme, but I mean it to be 90% networking.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm really serious about that. 90% networking. If you do 10% online job applications, you can understand when you apply to a job online, you are competing with literally the whole country. They get hundreds of these things, right? Your percentage of getting noticed is extremely slim. I'm not saying people don't get jobs. Of course they do, right? Like the one person. That is not where you should be focusing your effort. 90% networking. But the other thing too is that I appreciate your desire to basically set yourself up for success and not bite off more than you can chew because you want to learn the sector. But even though I said a few minutes ago that employers don't have time to train, it's very possible that there's an organization that where they will hire you at the right lane level, but understand that maybe you need to learn more about the sector, and then they'll give you that time to learn about the sector. So I wouldn't downgrade your lane just because of because of your level of industry knowledge. I would keep yourself potentially at the same lane and just be open with employers because they may be perfectly fine with you having a learning curve in the sectoral knowledge. And it depends on how they frame the job description, because in the requirement section or the qualification section, unless they say we need somebody with North American experience, unless they say that, you can go ahead and apply. And if you get the job in the interview, you can say, look, I've got all the skills in the job. Please know that I will have a learning curve when it comes to understanding this North American market. Are you okay with that? Okay. So I would not downgrade your level because you think that because you downgrade your level, it's going to give you more entry level, like basic understanding. No. Because again, they're going to think of you overqualified. You have the skills for the job. You just need greater sectoral understanding, and that they very well may be open to giving you some time to learn.
Daryl, I would add, just if I can add something to that, frame the question differently. How can you gain sectoral understanding? And make a list of 20 ways and then start learning about the sector, go to meetups, go to these coffees and network. Because you're going to be, and read, go to a conference, look at who trains, people, look at the association, you can, come up with it, but just start doing it. And you don't know what level of understanding you're going to need to be hired. And really, that decision is going to be made in the interview. So it may be that you are actively learning, you're picking up a thing or two here and there, and you're able to reflect that knowledge in an answer to a question. And, and someone says, okay, you're hired. You don't have to write a PhD about this,
Right. And it's also about doing
and I say
research.
this as an overlearner. It's like, I think I have to know more because I'm curious, but I think one can draw the line too far,
Yeah, that's
beyond what really is
Mhm.
practical
That's right.
for the circumstances in which you're
That's
dealing.
right.
So yeah, brainstorm a bit. I mean, there was a head of a Bain and Company, Bill Bain, who said, never let action get in the way of thinking. So you have
Or thinking get in the way of action, maybe?
No,
Oh, action get in the way of thinking.
yeah, because you have to think first.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you aiming for? Get the parameters of the situation defined appropriately, and then what to do becomes clear, and not, I'm confessing my sins here, and you're not getting a PhD for a mid-level job.
Right. And yet,
Yeah.
Dana, you can still be doing research right now so that you do feel more comfortable with the sector. Right now,
Precisely.
during your job search, feel more comfortable with the sector that you're going into. Look, you'd have to do that anyway on the job, right? Regardless of the level,
Yeah.
you would be doing that. Do it now.
And find a mentor or three, people, I mean, you can pick them. They don't have to necessarily know they're your mentor, but follow somebody's posts, see if you can get to know individuals who seem to know their way around. A lot of people are very generous, it's the age of the influencer. A lot of people are very generous with their knowledge, and case in point, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Shira.
Yeah, you're welcome. Ty, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm late.
That's
Basically, I think my situation is somewhat similar. I've had positions that had a lot more responsibility, shooting for a lower level position, coordinator, specialist position. In my networking, I found out that you need to educate, as Vern and Shira says, educate what you're looking for, because there was a position out there I applied for. Didn't get selected for an interview, but when I went into my network, they said, oh, we have positions open. Oh, I didn't know you were looking for that level position. I thought this was beyond you.
That's
So
right.
if that's your situation, I think you need to make it clear to you networking, to whoever you're touching base with, is, I'm not looking for the higher level position. And mainly as far as, like, you got to say, well, this is why, because this is my passion. This is why I want to be at this level. I think and once they get that, they'll say, oh, okay, great, we'll consider you.
And Ty, I think so. This is a very interesting point, right? So I want to underscore this whole idea about the why. So Ty, in your case, right, you were at the director level. You're now looking for this customer service entry level kind of thing. You're doing that for personal reasons, right? You're very, very intentional about the fact that you are a customer service guy. This is the level you want to be at. You're doing it because it's the right role for you, right? So for Dana, again, just to help you rethink this, look at your why. If your why is because you don't think you have enough skill, in this case, sectoral knowledge, I would encourage you to rethink that, right? Because of what Susan and I have been talking about. You can bolster that knowledge through research. Had you said, Dana, something like Ty, had you said, well, look, I just don't want to do the manager level thing anymore. I don't want to do the director level thing anymore. I'm a whatever, I'm a place in my life, I want something lower level, or I want to go shift into this. Like if you're doing it because it's really what you want, that's different. Like Ty is doing it. But if you're doing it because you don't think you have enough skills, we would encourage you to go do the research, build your skills, or share with the employer, let them know, hey, I'm lacking in this knowledge. Are you okay with that? Do you get it? It's all about your why. But once you come to that decision, then let your network know. Or in Gina's case, I'm shifting sectors. Here's why. Does that make sense? And then when your network understands your why, then they can be your ambassador. That's how that works.
Yeah. So I think I shared some of the tidbits of my whys in the several calls, because number one, that's what's like, how do I send the message to the people, to my network, wherein number one, I would need to be remote up until the end of 2023 for personal reasons. And then 2024, I can go hybrid. And then for second is I still oversee my team overseas, but I don't have as much responsibility as I had before. So, and my fear is if I share that information to the company, being risk averse, they don't want to invest in people who are doing other things outside.
How long do you have to be doing this other work with your overseas team?
It's my own it's my own businesses, so I think I would have to be doing that forever. So
Okay.
it's
Well,
not, it's just more on really checking on the plans and suggesting. It's
okay.
not, yeah,
So it's not a
a
multi-hour
day-to-day
week. It's
operation. No.
not okay. Then that's all you have to say. Just let them
Okay.
know in the interview, by the way, this is something I do on the side. Please know that it does not take multiple hours a day or a week. It is not going to interfere with my job. As long as you are clear with them, overcome their objection before they even ask it, be fully transparent, right? You should be fine with that. What was the other? I'm sorry, I lost it. What was the other thing that you said in terms of your reasoning?
The first one would be I would need to be remote
Oh, yeah.
up until end of
That's
23.
that's not that big of a deal these days. As I alluded to earlier, so many companies now have completely gone remote, like permanently remote. So it is a very high likelihood that you could find a fully remote job, period, in which case it doesn't really matter. For those organizations that are insisting on hybrid, and there are more companies that are, that are pulling people back inside because they were remote for the 2 years, right? Some of those hybrid companies might be open to you staying remote until the end of 2023. I'm not saying absolutely, but there's a greater likelihood. See, pre-pandemic, this would have been a very different conversation. So few people were fully remote, barely gave people 1 day a week telework. Remember, we used to call it telework, right? It was a completely different mindset. Now, the assumption on the employer part of employers is that most candidates want remote work, and their decision is, do we force people to come back in? And so if you're perfectly qualified and they love you in every other way, they might make an exception. I can't say promise, but they might make an exception. But as long as I would be transparent when you apply. Let them know those 3 things. Hey, I'm learning the industry, the North American. Number 2, I would need fully remote until 2023 and 2023. And number 3, I got this business. Let them know early on in the interview and just see if it's a make or breaker for them. And if it is, okay, fine. You've had a conversation. You might be completely fine with all 3 of those things, but you just let them know early on.
Okay. That would be
So-
something that I can share during the recruiters level.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we would
Right.
hope that you would. Please, please, please. For all people on this call, we recruiters want full transparency. We can't do our jobs otherwise, right? Like we need you to tell us exactly what you need so that we can see if it's a good fit, whatever those things are, from compensation to location to whatever. Please be transparent, especially if it's a make or breaker. Like for you, Dana, it's sounding like the whole remote until end of 23 is a must-have. Is that right?
Yes, that's my number one. Yeah.
Anytime you have a must-have requirement, you must let the recruiter know early on. Now, if it's a nice to have, that's different. Nice to have is like, it's nice to have. So you don't have to share it up front because regardless of whether they offer it or not, it's not going to prevent you from taking the job. So those things you can be judicious about. If you would like to share, you can say, like, for example, Dana, let's say you said you'd prefer to be remote by till the end of 2023. Let's say that was your case, then that's how you would phrase it. You'd ask it as a question. You'd say, hey, it would be my strong preference to work remotely till the end of 2023. Is that okay? Does that work for you? And if they say no, you can say, no problem. It was just a preference. But because it's a requirement, you state it as a requirement. Say, I need to let you know I have a requirement. One of my personal requirements is to work remote till the end of 2023. Is that going to be a problem? And if they say no, you say, or if they say yes, it's a problem, then say, yeah, very nice to speak with you, but like, that's just, it's a non-negotiable for me. That makes sense?
All right,
It's
got
all
it.
how you phrase it.
Got it. Thank you. I was having some apprehension sharing number 2, which is I have other responsibilities on the side because some companies don't really like to have
Yes.
someone. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as you frame it in a way that really shows it's not going to take time away from your work responsibilities.
Okay.
Because if it was really a full business, then that I can absolutely see why an employer would have an issue. But because you're saying it's sort of a hither and yon kind of thing, doesn't take a lot of your priorities, explain it exactly that way and say, truly, it is not going to interfere with my work. I just need to let you know that I do have this on the side.
Okay, I'll just make it clear that I don't run it anymore. Thank you, Shira.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're very welcome. You're welcome. Good. And there was somebody, I'm not going to call them out. There was somebody who in the direct message asked about my services and like how I work and stuff. So I just figured I'll just tell everybody. I'm going to pull up my website here, and here is the page. Give me one sec. Where you can find out more about what I do. At least this is how you can find out what I do for my career coaching and branding and such. That's where you can find that. Okay. And if you'd like to just reach out to me via email, just to have an exploratory conversation, welcome to do that too. Here is my email address. Okay. Feel free to reach out anytime. Happy to have a 20 to 30 minute exploratory chat if that's something that's important. So for the person who asked me that question, hopefully that's helpful. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, Susan.
Question.
I'm sorry.
Could I ask a follow-up to Daryl's? If you're not working with a recruiter, when and how would you say the same requirements? Would you put it in a cover letter? Or would you tell the person who's introducing you?
Sure.
How would you?
Great question. So first of all, let me just clarify the nomenclature. Okay. So you mentioned working with a recruiter. So not every organization has a recruiter. They don't have that, meaning they don't have a third party recruiter, like somebody like me. They don't have a corporate recruiter. They don't have somebody with the title recruiter. Okay. Plenty of organizations don't. Sometimes it's just the HR person, and sometimes they're too small. They don't even have an HR person. And you should know that most organizations don't typically have a full-time HR person unless they're over 40 employees. Let me say that again. Unless the organization has over 40 employees, they typically do not have a full-time HR person. They might have an office manager, but they don't have an HR. It's just not what's done. And so it could be the hiring manager, right? So Susan, to that point, whoever the first interview is with, whoever that is, that's the person that you tell these things to, okay? In terms of your networking, you don't necessarily have to share all those like fine requirements. The only thing you want to tell your network are things that have to do with them helping to identify the right kind of opportunities. So it's like saying, hey, I'm really looking to transition into this sector, or I'm really looking to be in this geography. Like basically, a network, don't send me anything unless it's this sector or this geography or this kind of role. But all those little nuancy things around remote work and geography, like these like work life, salary, anything like that, you don't have to bother your network with that. You just look at the job description, see what it says, and see if there's an initial alignment. And then those nuancy things, that's when I would wait for the employer. Whoever the first level hiring or contact is, just share with them, those specific little needs.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up. And for those of you who are new, at this stage, I'm gonna stop the recording. We're gonna sign off. However, for those of you who would like to stay on for a short prayer call, which I lead, you're certainly welcome to do that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and sign off here with the formal recording.